Hey everyone, Richard Robbins here. Hope you are well. Happy New Year, by the way. We have arrived in 2021. So what I have for you today is I have the update from the Calgary Real Estate Board. Couple things I'm going to discuss with you. Number one, let's do a little comparison of December of 2020 over December of 2019. But then I'm also going to take you through the quarterly. No, I'm going to start again, Logan. Okay. Hey everyone, Richard Robbins here. Hope you're well. Welcome to 2021. We made it. Yes. So what I have is a market update for the Calgary Real Estate Board for you. And there's a few things I want to go over today. I've got some numbers for you. I'm obviously going to compare December of last year to December of the year before. Also, what I want to talk about is some quarterly numbers. So each quarter of last year, how did it look? Very unusual compared to what we would normally see. Then I'm also going to show you sort of 5 years in terms of the total number of sales that is taking place in your market over the last 5 years, as well as the increase or decrease in average price that has taken place as well. And then I'm going to give you sort of a quick overview of what I see for 2021. No guarantees, obviously. But what do I see happening as we move into 2021? So obviously what you're seeing right now is you're seeing December of 2020 from December of 2019. You can see very quickly here that obviously our sales were up substantially. We did 858 sales December of 2019, and we did 1,199 in 2020, which is a nice increase. And I will be honest with you, a lot of that to do with COVID, because what happened, we sort of lost the second quarter a little bit based on COVID. And then the last 6 months of the year remained very, very busy. But what I want you to look at is the months of inventory. You'll notice in 2020, we ended the year with 3.1 months of inventory, which is obviously a very strong market. Keeping in mind, 4 to 6 is a balanced market. Below 4 is going to be a seller's market. Above 6 is going to be a buyer's market. What happened with prices year over year? Well, basically they're the same. 450,000 was your average price December of 2019, and you can see that it's sitting at basically 448, which is sort of the same at the end. So we had no dramatic change. However, there's going to be some positive things about price as I get into some of the quarterly numbers. So here's what happened if I look at your quarterly comparison. You can see in the first quarter of 2020, we did 3,237 sales. Now, generally, the busiest quarter of the year is the second quarter. But of course, with COVID, that definitely was not the case this year. You can see we did 3,400 sales. So not much more than January, February, March did we do in April, May, and June. But then look what happened in the third quarter. Took off. Pent-up demand, dealing with low interest rates, obviously COVID, people had gotten used to it, even though it was still floating around. Real estate's an essential service. You know, people get out there and they start buying and they started selling houses. We went up to 5,100 sales that took place. And then, of course, in the final quarter, it dropped down a little bit, 4,400, which is to be expected. But saying that, it was still a very strong fourth quarter. So these are some great statistics to be showing your clients. In terms of 5-year history of sales, have a look at this. So if we go back to 2016, we did almost 18,000 sales, but we got to almost 19,000 in 2017, which obviously you can see is the busiest year of the last 5 years. 2018, you know, we're dealing with oil prices and many other challenges in Alberta. And of course, you see we dropped down to just over 16,000. And then we did, say, 16,500 in 2019. And then again, we're floating right around 16,000 in 2020. Obviously, why would those numbers be low? Because the second quarter was obviously substantially slower than it would normally be. What about prices? Here's your average price for the last 5 years. So you can see it was 478 5 years ago, went up to 480, down to 475. And then we had a pretty significant drop in average price. You know, it went down to 457, and we ended 2020 at 454,000. So when you look at all of this, you say, well, what is sort of the prediction as we move forward into 2020? Well, let's face it. We have very low interest rates. I think that's going to be a positive. Obviously, we're still dealing in Alberta with low oil prices, so, that's obviously going to have an effect. So I think overall, right now, the economy, if we look at Calgary and if we look at Edmonton, and by the way, the Edmonton market, real estate wise, was much stronger than it was in Calgary in 2020, which is interesting. So I think what you're going to have is, I'm going to say, more of the same. Now, what could be the differentiator here? It could be what happens with COVID in the government. Right now, the government is, obviously, most provinces are in some form of lockdown. Obviously, COVID cases, as I record this, are skyrocketing again in most provinces, not all provinces, but in most provinces. So there's a possibility that if they go into, let's say, a full lockdown, then of course, what's going to happen? The market might slow down a little bit. But I think overall, I think right now, consumer confidence when it comes to real estate is very, very high, which is a great thing. So I think this year is going to be much like we had in 2020. The only difference is, unless there's some severe, crazy lockdown, we won't have what we had in the second quarter, which would indicate to me that our sales for this year should be higher as we move into the end of the year than they were in 2020. But again, it's still hard to say. But here's what I do know. Right now, overall, when I look at the last quarter of the year and I look in December, your inventory was fairly low. Your inventory will start to pick up as we move into the spring, as it always does, and you'll probably move into more of a balanced market. And I think what you're going to see is, you're going to see certain property types are going to do extremely well because they're going to have lower months of inventory. An example of that: take a relatively affordable detached property in Calgary. I think you're going to see prices increase in that particular market. I look at condo sales, and I think, well, condo sales have been weak for a long time. I think they're going to continue to be a little bit weak because you have a lot of months of inventory. Buyers have a lot to choose from, which means they can negotiate a little bit better. I also think the high-end market is probably going to remain fairly balanced. So I think you're going to see some price increase in inexpensive detached, maybe inexpensive semi-detached, that sort of market where first-time buyers can get in because interest rates are very, very low. I think as prices start to creep up and you get into higher market, it's going to be a little more balanced. And I think you'll probably see a bit of a decrease in the condo market prices over the course of this year. But here's what I do know: no matter what is going on, you can always make it a great year. So thank you for watching this. And as we move through this year with COVID, and of course now many people have already been vaccinated, and hopefully by the end of the third quarter, latest the end of the year, that our population should be vaccinated, at least to a point we have herd immunity, that things are going to get back to normal. But till then, we all still have to be very careful. And I say to everybody, make sure that, as a real estate sales professional, that you're always part of the solution and you're not part of the problem. Make sure you're using technology like this, where you can actually do listing presentations. You can do buyer needs analysis using Zoom, as an example. You can actually do walkthroughs where you can using FaceTime or using Zoom or whatever the case is. We don't always have to get in front of people. And I think by showing the consumer, because some people are more nervous about COVID than others. And I think by you giving them options and just saying to them, listen, if you don't want to get together in person, we fully understand that. There are other options available. I think you're going to make them more comfortable. I think they're going to see that you're on the leading edge. There's going to be other people out there that say, no big deal. Come on over to the house. And of course, that's up to you. That's up to them. But I think the most important thing is be flexible in your approach. And I think it'll be to the benefit of everybody. And at the end of the day, everybody, remember, it's a beautiful life. Make it count.